Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm taking you on a journey, a luxury holiday filled with moments that stay in your heart long after the trip is over. From the first spark of excitement at the airport to the calm of relaxing on a sun-kissed beach, each step is a story in itself. We'll board a first-class flight, where stunning views from the window set the tone for the days ahead. You'll step with me into a seaside resort, greeted by the warm ocean breeze, and together we'll explore a coastline alive with colorful corals and playful crabs. We'll taste the joy of delicious meals overlooking the bay, where flavors and scenery blend into perfection. And in the quiet moments, we'll pause on the sand, reflecting on the beauty of travel and the memories it creates. So let's begin this adventure and leave every detail together. As I stepped out of the taxi and looked up at the bright glass windows of the airport terminal, a wave of excitement washed over me. The air was filled with a mixture of sounds: rolling suitcases, cheerful chatter in different languages, and the faint echo of announcements over the loudspeakers. I could feel my heart beating just a little faster, knowing that in just a few hours, I'd be on my way to the kind of holiday I'd been dreaming about for months. My hands tightened around the handle of my suitcase, not because it was heavy, but because it was holding everything I needed for an adventure I knew I'd never forget. The automatic doors slid open, releasing a burst of cool air from inside, and I stepped forward with a smile I couldn't hide. The check-in area was alive with movement. Families gathering passports, couples comparing boarding passes, and travelers glancing up at the departure boards. I joined the queue for my airline, my eyes scanning the overhead signs until I spotted my destination in bold letters. The thought of where I was heading filled me with warmth, and I found myself imagining the soft sand beneath my feet, the sun painting the horizon in shades of orange and pink. A gentle hum of anticipation surrounded me, as if everyone here shared the same secret, that travel holds a magic that never fades, no matter how many times you do it. As I reached the check-in counter, the attendant greeted me with a professional yet friendly smile. The sound of my suitcase wheels clicking across the floor was oddly satisfying, like a final step in a small but important ritual. I handed over my passport and ticket, and in return received that precious boarding pass, a slim piece of paper that somehow represented freedom, discovery, and possibility all in one. I slipped it safely into my travel wallet, patting it lightly as if to reassure myself it was really there. With my luggage taken care of, I moved towards security, joining another line of eager travelers. I glanced around and caught snippets of conversations, plans about visiting relatives, excitement over a honeymoon, nervous laughter from someone about to fly for the first time. I realized that airports are like little cities of dreams, each person carrying their own story, their own reason for stepping onto a plane. And in that moment, mine was simple: to embrace every second of a luxury holiday that promised rest, adventure, and memories. After passing through security, I found myself in the departure lounge, the scent of fresh coffee drifting from a nearby cafe. I considered stopping for a cup, but decided instead to wander through the duty-free shops, letting the colorful displays and bright lights pull me in for a moment. Perfumes, chocolates, travel gadgets, they all seemed to remind me that the journey itself could be just as enjoyable as the destination. I picked up a small keychain with the name of my destination on it, thinking it would make a perfect keepsake to remember this moment before the holiday had even begun. Eventually, I made my way to the gate, where rows of seats were filled with people checking their phones, reading books, or staring out at the planes lined up like giant white birds ready to take flight. I found an empty seat by the window and sat down, my eyes tracing the sleek shape of the aircraft that would soon carry me away. The boarding announcement played over the speakers, and my stomach fluttered with the mix of excitement and impatience that always comes before something special. I stood up, gathered my things, and joined the queue at the gate. As I stepped forward, ticket in hand, I felt that quiet moment of realization. You're really doing this. You're leaving behind the ordinary for something extraordinary. And with that, I walked down the jet bridge, ready to begin the journey of a lifetime. Stepping onto the jet bridge, I could feel the soft vibration beneath my feet as the plane's engines prepared for the journey ahead. The hum seemed to grow louder with each step, and my anticipation matched its rhythm. When I reached the aircraft door, I was greeted by a warm smile from a flight attendant who welcomed me as though I were an old friend returning home. The moment I turned left into the first-class cabin, I felt the atmosphere shift. It was quieter, calmer, almost like entering a private lounge in the sky. My seat was more like a personal suite, with soft leather cushions and enough space to stretch out fully. A large window stretched beside me, perfectly framing the wing and the runway beyond. I ran my hand lightly along the armrest, feeling the smooth texture and noticing the hidden buttons for adjusting the seat into countless positions. A neatly folded blanket and a plump pillow sat waiting for me, along with a menu that promised an indulgent selection of meals. I couldn't help but smile at the thought of starting my holiday in such comfort. A tray with a welcome drink appeared in front of me, a chilled glass of sparkling water with a slice of lemon. I took a sip, letting the coolness refresh me after the rush of the airport. Around me, other passengers settled into their own spaces, the gentle clinking of glasses and soft murmurs blending into a soothing background. From the window, I watched ground crew moving like a small army, loading luggage, checking wheels, and ensuring every detail was perfect. As boarding continued, I adjusted my seat slightly to lean closer to the window. The sky was beginning to brighten with the first touches of morning sunlight, casting a golden glow over the tarmac. I could see other aircraft preparing for takeoff, their tails marked with colors and logos from around the world. Each one was a promise of a different journey, a different story unfolding somewhere else. The captain's voice came over the speakers, calm and confident, explaining our flight path and the weather we would encounter along the way. I felt a small surge of excitement hearing the names of places we would pass, imagining the clouds parting to reveal islands, coastlines, and vast stretches of ocean. The flight attendant returned with a small plate of warm nuts, and I took one slowly, letting the moment sink in. When the cabin door closed, a soft chime signaled that we were ready. The safety demonstration played, though I found my eyes drawn back to the view outside. The tug vehicle began to push us back from the gate, and the movement was so smooth it felt like drifting. I watched as the ground slowly slipped away, the terminal shrinking in the distance until we lined up on the runway. As the engines roared to life, the sensation of power filled the cabin. We began to roll forward, faster and faster, until the nose lifted gently and the ground fell away beneath us. Through the window, the world shifted from details, cars, roads, buildings, to broad patches of green and brown stitched together by winding rivers. The city soon became a tiny pattern fading into mist. Up here, the sun was brighter, the clouds whiter, and everything felt distant from the everyday life I had left behind. I leaned back in my seat, watching as we climbed higher, passing through a thin layer of cloud that briefly blurred the view before revealing a clear blue sky stretching endlessly ahead. Below us, the earth seemed peaceful and still, a reminder that sometimes you need to rise above it all to truly appreciate where you've come from and where you're going. The holiday had already begun, and I hadn't even reached the destination yet. The moment the car turned off the main road and onto the long, winding driveway, I felt my heart skip a beat. Palm trees lined the path like tall, graceful sentinels, their fronds swaying gently as if they were waving a warm welcome. The scent of salt hung in the air, mingling with the faint fragrance of tropical flowers that bloomed in bright clusters along the roadside. The sound of the ocean, faint at first, grew louder with each passing second, until it became the soft, rhythmic heartbeat of the place. When the car stopped in front of the resort entrance, I stepped out and was instantly embraced by the warm ocean breeze. It wrapped around me like a familiar friend, carrying with it a promise of lazy afternoons, golden sunsets, and nights filled with the lullaby of waves. The entrance was framed by wooden beams and large open windows that allowed the sea air to drift freely inside. Beyond the reception area, I could already glimpse flashes of turquoise, the glistening water calling me before I had even checked in. Inside, the resort had a charm that felt effortless. The polished wooden floors gleamed under the soft light, and the high, thatched ceiling gave the space an airy openness. Bowls of fresh flowers were placed on tables, and somewhere nearby, the faint notes of gentle island music floated through the air. The staff welcomed me with smiles that seemed genuine, the kind that instantly made me feel like I belonged here. A cool, refreshing drink was placed in my hand before I could even set down my bag, the condensation sliding over my fingers as I took a grateful sip. The check-in was quick, and with the room key in hand, I followed one of the staff members through a winding path shaded by palm trees. The stone walkway was warm under my sandals, and every few steps offered a new view. Small garden ponds dotted with lilies, sun loungers shaded by white umbrellas, and glimpses of the vast ocean beyond. The scent of sunscreen mixed with the salty tang of the sea, a combination that instantly made me slow my pace, wanting to savor every step. When we reached my villa, I paused before opening the door just to listen. The waves were close now, their steady rhythm blending with the occasional call of seabirds overhead. I stepped inside and felt the coolness of the air-conditioned room, but my eyes went immediately to the wide glass doors on the opposite wall. Sliding them open, I was met with a view that seemed almost unreal, a stretch of golden sand leading to water so clear that I could see the ripple of the tide far out on the horizon. The breeze carried the scent of the ocean straight into the room, along with a faint mist of sea spray that touched my skin. I stood there for a moment, letting the scene sink in, the way the sunlight danced over the water, the distant shapes of small boats drifting lazily along the coastline. It was the kind of beauty that didn't just fill your eyes. It filled your whole being, as if it reached deep inside and reminded you how good it feels to be alive. I set my bags down, kicked off my shoes, and stepped barefoot onto the soft, warm sand. The grains shifted under my feet, and I felt a sense of grounding, as though the earth itself was welcoming me. The breeze played gently through my hair, and I closed my eyes, breathing it all in. In that moment, I knew this wasn't just a place to stay. It was a place to feel, to pause, and to truly be present. The ocean had a way of making everything else seem small, and I was ready to let it work its magic. The morning sun was already warming the sand when I stepped onto the beach, snorkel mask in hand. The tide was gentle, the waves rolling in with a soft hiss before retreating, leaving behind tiny trails of foam. The water sparkled like liquid glass, its surface catching the light and scattering it in 1,000 directions. Just a few metros out, I could see darker patches beneath the turquoise surface, reefs waiting to be explored. I felt a tingle of excitement. knowing that below that shimmering skin of the sea lay an entirely different world. Wading into the shallows, the coolness wrapped around my ankles, then my knees, and soon I was gliding forward, my mask in place and snorkel ready. The moment my face dipped below the water, everything shifted. The sounds of the world above vanished, replaced by the muffled rhythm of my breathing and the faint crackle of life beneath the waves. The clarity was breathtaking. Shafts of sunlight pierced the water, illuminating the sandy bottom and the coral formations that rose like miniature mountains from the seabed. The corals themselves were a living rainbow, soft pinks, deep purples, golden yellows, and bright greens, all interwoven in intricate shapes. Some looked like delicate lace fans, while others were solid and bolder, like sheltering tiny creatures in their crevices. Schools of small, silver fish darted past in perfect unison, their scales catching the light as they moved like liquid metal. I slowed my strokes, not wanting to disturb their dance, just floating above them and letting the current guide me. Then, along the edge of one coral cluster, I spotted the first crab. Its shell was patterned like a mosaic, and it moved sideways with surprising speed, disappearing into a gap between rocks. A little further on, I found another, this one larger, with claws that looked almost too big for its body. It eyed me cautiously before shuffling into the shadow of a coral ledge. Each sighting felt like a small treasure, a reminder that this world was alive and aware, even if it existed quietly out of sight most of the time. Deeper into the reef, the variety grew. Brightly colored parrotfish nibbled at the corals, their beaks clicking faintly as they fed. A shy sea cucumber lay nestled between rocks, and tiny shrimp scuttled along the sandy floor. Every turn revealed something new, a burst of color, a flicker of movement, a shape I had to look at twice to be sure it wasn't just part of the reef. The sunlight overhead shifted as the morning went on, changing the way the corals looked, painting them in softer or richer tones depending on the angle. I floated for what felt like hours, completely absorbed in the underwater theater. The sensation of weightlessness, the way the current carried me without effort, the quiet intimacy of being surrounded by life that paid no attention to my presence. It was both humbling and exhilarating. Occasionally I would lift my head above water to take in the coastline, the strip of golden sand framed by swaying palms, before diving back down to rejoin the world below. Eventually, I drifted towards a shallow area where the reef gave way to open sand. Here, the crabs seemed more confident, scuttling across the seabed in the open, leaving faint trails behind them. One in particular caught my eye, a small one with a shell the color of amber, glistening in the sunlight. It paused as if to acknowledge me, then continued on its way, vanishing into a patch of seagrass. By the time I finally stood up in the shallows, pushing my mask onto my forehead, the sun was higher, and the beach was beginning to fill with the soft sounds of people arriving. I walked back onto the sand, water dripping from my hair, my skin warm from the sun and tingling with salt. Beneath the surface, I had found a world untouched by time, and I carried its colors and stillness with me as I stepped back into the day. The restaurant was perched on a gentle rise, its open terrace stretching out towards the horizon where the deep blue of the ocean met the soft gold of the sky. As I stepped onto the deck, the faint scent of salt drifted up from the bay below, mingling with the warm, inviting aroma of freshly baked bread and grilled seafood. The host led me to a small table near the edge, where the view seemed to spill out endlessly in every direction. From here, I could see fishing boats rocking lazily in the water, their colorful hulls reflecting on the calm surface, and further out, the shimmering line where the sunlight danced across the waves. I sank into my chair, the wood smooth and cool under my fingers, and let my gaze wander. The sound of gentle conversation floated around me, soft enough not to intrude, blending with the rhythmic hush of waves reaching the shore. A light breeze swept through, carrying just enough coolness to balance the warmth of the afternoon sun. The menu lay in front of me, but for a moment I didn't even open it. I just let the setting do its work, slowing my thoughts, settling my breath. When I finally looked down at the choices, it felt impossible to decide. Freshly caught fish, seasoned with herbs from the resort's own garden, tender cuts of meat grilled to perfection, salads bright with tropical fruits, and desserts that promised indulgence in every bite. I settled on a seafood platter, drawn to the promise of flavors that would echo the very bay I was gazing at. To start, a simple tomato and basil bruschetta, paired with a glass of chilled white wine. The first bite of the bruschetta was a reminder that simplicity can be pure perfection. The bread was crisp but soft in the middle, the tomatoes sweet and bursting with juice, the basil fragrant and fresh. Each bite carried the warmth of the sun and the richness of the earth, balanced by the cool, dry notes of the wine. I found myself eating slowly, not out of restraint, but because I wanted to stretch the moment. When the main course arrived, it was almost too beautiful to disturb. The platter was a canvas of colors, the pale pink of grilled prawns, the golden crust of seared scallops, the rich orange of lobster tails split open to reveal tender meat. Alongside them, a small bowl of buttery garlic sauce, slices of lemon, and a scattering of fresh herbs. The first taste was everything I had hoped for. The prawns were sweet and succulent, the scallops melted on my tongue, and the lobster was rich yet delicate, each bite carrying a hint of the sea. Between bites, I would pause to take in the view again. The boats below had begun to drift further out, their sails catching the soft afternoon wind. The sunlight on the water had shifted, turning the surface into a field of diamonds. A gull wheeled lazily overhead before gliding down towards the shoreline. It was a scene that could quiet even the busiest mind, and I found myself smiling without even thinking about it. By the time dessert arrived, a slice of passion fruit cheesecake with a drizzle of honey, the sun had begun its slow descent. The sky shifted to softer shades of peach and lavender, and the bay took on a glassy stillness. Each bite of the cheesecake was a gentle burst of sweet and tart, the flavors lingering just long enough to make me close my eyes in appreciation. I lingered long after the plates had been cleared, watching the light fade and the first hints of evening settle over the bay. It wasn't just the food that had satisfied me. It was the way the meal, the view, and the moment had woven together into something unforgettable. The sand was warm beneath me, fine and soft, molding perfectly to the shape of my body as I leaned back into the gentle embrace of the beach. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over everything it touched, and the sound of the waves played a rhythm that seemed to match the steady beat of my heart. Each swell rolled in with a calming hush before retreating again, leaving behind a lace of foam that dissolved quietly into the shore. I could feel the salt in the air settling lightly on my skin, a reminder that I was exactly where I was meant to be. I stretched my legs out, toes curling into the sand, and let my eyes drift over the horizon. The sea shimmered in the afternoon light, its surface broken only by the occasional splash of a fish or the shadow of a passing seabird. A soft breeze moved lazily across the beach, brushing against my face and carrying the faint scent of coconut from a nearby grove. Somewhere in the distance I could hear laughter, a family playing near the water's edge, their voices rising and falling like the tide. It struck me how different this pace was from the rush of everyday life. No schedules, no deadlines, no constant hum of traffic. Just the open sky, the endless sea, and time stretching out like the shoreline itself. I thought about how easy it is to get caught up in routine, to forget that the world is bigger than our daily worries. Being here, with the sand beneath me and the ocean before me, felt like stepping outside of time, into a space where everything was simpler and clearer. I reached for the cool bottle of water beside me, taking a slow sip as I leaned back on my hands. The sunlight played over the ripples in the water, making it look as though the sea was sprinkled with tiny fragments of gold. I realized that these moments, the ones where you do nothing but breathe and take it all in, are the ones that stay with you long after the trip is over. You can't pack them into a suitcase, but they travel home with you just the same. A few shells lay scattered nearby, small gifts from the tide. I picked one up, feeling its smooth, spiral surface and wondering how many journeys it had taken before ending up here at my feet. That thought made me smile. In its own way, it had traveled too, shaped by the ocean's endless movements, carrying the story of its journey without saying a word. The shadows on the sand began to stretch longer as the afternoon slid gently towards evening. The colors in the sky deepened, the blue softening into shades of pink and orange. The air cooled slightly, and I wrapped my arms loosely around my knees, just sitting there, watching the slow shift of the day. The waves seemed to grow calmer, as if the sea itself was preparing to rest. I thought about all I had seen and done since arriving, the sights, the tastes, the sounds that had filled each day. Every experience felt richer because I had taken the time to notice it, to be fully present in it. Travel isn't just about going somewhere new. It's about allowing yourself to be changed by it, to let the beauty of the place leave a mark on you. As the first star appeared above the fading horizon, I felt that quiet, satisfying peace that comes only when you know you have truly lived the moment. And so our journey comes to an end, but the memories we've gathered along the way will stay with us. From that first step into the airport, full of excitement, to the luxury and comfort of a first-class flight, every moment felt like the start of something special. We arrived at a beautiful seaside resort, welcomed by the ocean breeze, and discovered the vibrant life beneath the waves while exploring the coastline. We tasted the flavors of the bay, each meal a celebration of the place itself, and we found peace in the stillness of the beach, reflecting on the joy of travel and the richness of new experiences. Though the holiday may be over, its colors, scents, and feelings will travel home with us. Until our next adventure, may we carry this sense of wonder wherever we go.